Played the first 5 hours of Forspoken. I actually been really looking forward to this. This is like the Unreal 5 tech demo or tech game ish. Like the game that's supposed to show really what Unreal 5 can do, I think. Or am I thinking something else? I don't know. Let's take a look. Oh, and of course this is by Arekkz. I think that's how you name pronounce it. I'm pretty sure I've seen his stuff with Destiny. A lot of Destiny stuff, but let's take a look.
Alright, just before I start this video, I want to quickly give you guys some
Oh
context
no, this is
as to
someone
what
else.
you're
I don't
about
know
to
who this
watch.
is.
The other week I had a chance to go to a hands-on event and go hands-on with Forspoken. Following that, I then recorded my impressions talking about that hands-on time. Following that, they then released a playable demo which I did not know about, and then having played the demo, some of the things I mentioned in this video, specifically about not having exposure to melee combat, I have then in the demo had a chance to test out. That may have of course changed some of my opinions because actually in the demo the melee
Looks pretty
combat
cool.
feels kind of cool and I did actually enjoy some of that stuff. But regardless, I still want to share this video with you guys because this talks about
Yeah, I
my
mean this
hands-on
actually looks
impressions
really
from
nice.
the beginning of the game, so it might still give you guys some insights. Anyway, with that being said, now I'm going to go back to the original video
Damn.
that I made, so
Just
hopefully you guys enjoy this.
That was like
Yo,
such
what's
a
going on,
like
guys? Arekkz.
Spartan
Welcome back
kick.
to another video for Forspoken, and today I want to talk about
Oh, this is the one where like the main character actually reminded me of like Valkyrie in terms of like the aesthetics.
my hands-on impressions. I recently had a chance to go to a hands-on event thanks to the awesome guys over at Square Enix, and during that time I got to play through a few chapters of Forspoken from the very beginning of the game. So I got to experience the opening, I got to experience my first sort of venture
I don't really like how the damage numbers looked. I think they could have done a little more with that.
into the open world, testing out some different magical abilities, and then towards the end of the session I got to jump forward to a slightly later chapter to tackle my first boss to sort of get a feel for some of the challenges the game will present. And overall I did have a great time with the game, but I will say from my time playing it did also leave me with quite a few questions. It's a game that personally I've been interested in since they announced it. From a visual point of view, the game instantly grabbed my attention. I definitely like the fluidity of movement, and overall it was something
like the environment looks really crisp. Like there's really not a lot to say badly about like just the graphics and fluidity of your movement.
that piqued my interest. However, having played it, when it comes to certain elements of combat, a few other things like that, there are definitely a few things that didn't necessarily click with me, but it's also worth noting that whenever it comes to these hands-on events, I only get a chance to experience a portion of the game. And one of the most fundamental things that I had an issue with, which I'll speak about more in this video, is something that unfortunately I didn't get a chance
The buildings look really unique
to experience in the demo. So it can be one of those things where when you go hands-on and you only get to experience part of what
like
the
that
game
was
has
really
to offer,
cool.
you end up leaving with a slightly skewed perception. So keep that in mind, but in this video I'm going to go through what I got to experience, talk about some of the stuff that I liked, talk about some of the stuff that I didn't like, and try and paint a picture for at least what Forspoken has to offer from the
I'm pretty sure this is coming out here soon, right? I really want to try this.
beginning. So if you guys do enjoy this, a like would be super appreciated. Comment down below if you have any questions, and of course do be sure to keep it locked because I will have more Forspoken gameplay coming your way. So to begin with, let's start off with what I got to experience. Again, started off from the very beginning of the game, so I got to experience Frey's sort of first venture into this new world.
Okay, discount what I said. This reminded me of Valkyrie. I think I was talking about like the trailers, not the actual gameplay. That kind of rough for facial
Her
animations.
interaction, of course, with the magical cuff. Now, one of the first things, of course, you get exposed to is the sort of general movement and initial combat. Starting off, obviously, very first thing in the game, you have some basic abilities. It all starts off with the sort of ability to fire
Like
a
a
ranged
dog worm?
projectile
What the
using
hell
your
was
cuff,
that?
and you use this to dispatch some early enemies. Now, initially, that is pretty simple. Then, of course, you continue the flow and introduces you to the magical parkour, and very quickly, you are able to seamlessly weave and sort of duck and dive your way over,
That's pretty cool.
through, and around the terrain. And honestly, movement in this game feels fantastic. This is one of the first things that, when
Okay.
they showed it in the
Yeah, I would
trailer,
run.
instantly grabbed my attention, and I'm happy to say
You got three
that
big
it
boys
definitely
on
does
you.
feel good moving around the world. You might have sort of some adjustment periods at first where, you know, things move pretty quickly, so you might run into a few walls, but once you get the flow down for it, and of course once you expand your skill tree, you can do some pretty cool things. Keep in mind when it comes to skills, early on you unlock the basic magical parkour where you can sort of vault over things and climb up, but of course if you want to be able to jump off walls, climb higher, these are things you will need to unlock later on, so you won't have all of your movement
that's pretty
capabilities
cool.
early, but you do at least from the
They're like
beginning
a
of
little
the game
turret,
get sufficient
little flower
movement
turret.
to, you know, again, sort of seamlessly weave around the environment. And when it comes to visuals, I think that is one of the most striking things in this game. It is a very visually impressive game. There's lots of nice particle effects, whether that is using your magical parkour to, move around the world, whether that is firing off some of your projectiles, using some of your magical abilities, they do all look very nice in combat. And in combat, things are, for the most part, pretty smooth. You have access to different abilities on different wheels, and of course you can map these to left and right triggers, so you can very seamlessly swap between.
The only thing I'm not really liking is that all your abilities are like from your bracelet. It doesn't really look like there's going to be that much build variety to actually play around with.
Various different abilities. And again, these tie into your skill tree. Early on, you have some pretty simple ones, but as you do progress, you do of course unlock more, and some of these will be support focused, some of them will be damage focused, some of them are of course good at single target damage, some of them are good at AoE damage, so you do have quite a few different things to explore. However, this is initially where I had one of my gripes, because for me personally, this is where there was a big sort of disjoint in the game, because movement is pretty fast paced, to the point where it kind of almost feels like you're dashing around something like Bayonetta or DMC, so often you run up to enemies and you instinctively want to melee them. However, initially, at the beginning of the game, this is not available to you. As I learned sort of later on, once you defeat the boss, or at least sort of at the end of chapter 5, you do unlock the ability to get melee moves. However, the fact that this of course doesn't occur till later means at least for the first, say, 5 or so chapters,
I think it would have made more sense if they started you out with melee abilities.
You get into this weird situation where you dash throughout the world, run around super seamlessly, come up to an enemy, want to fight, and instead of being able to just run up and punch it in the face and sort of continue your combo going, you then have to sort of stop and run around them in circles whilst you're firing off abilities, using abilities. It kind of sort of feels like
kind of
playing
boring.
a shooter, only without a gun. And that, for me, initially was a little disjointed. For some boss battles, it makes sense. If you're being chased by a big-ass dragon and you need to stay on the move, having the ability to fire projectiles is really useful. But when you get to...
That, or what they should have, I think an even better thing would have been like giving you like very simple versions of both systems. That way you can kind of get a feel of which one you prefer.
Some enemies that have
or
shields,
if you want a hybrid,
or just groups
build.
of enemies that ordinarily would be considered trash mobs that you would just lay waste to with some simple melee abilities. The fact that you don't have these early on does kind of make combat feel a little bit disjointed. Again, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to experience melee combat because I defeated the boss, which is the one that I believe unlocks those melee abilities, but at that point I then had to stop playing the game. I wasn't able to play any further. So this is what I meant at the beginning of the video when I said that my experience of the game, the fact that I didn't get to test out melee, has given me a somewhat skewed
that would make
vision
sense.
of
Yeah.
combat. I sort of left it with not all of my questions being answered and a few slight gripes about the general flow for the simple reason that I didn't get to experience a core pillar of the game. The fact that, of course, you also don't get introduced to those until about sort of 5 chapters in means you're going to have to play sort of a good few hours of the game before you really get exposed to that. And, of course, if you go exploring for a while, it could well be a good, like 3, 4, 5-ish hours before you get melee abilities. So I could see that
is a long time.
People initially, if you sort of dive in and you're getting kind of frustrated of just running around in circles, firing off projectiles. But I am very interested to see how that feels, so once I get a chance to go hands-on with the full game, or at least an extended build, and do get to sort of test out that missing puzzle piece, then my opinions may definitely change. Outside of that, though, things were honestly pretty enjoyable.
The game looks really, really good. Like, I'm still going to play this. Like, kind of almost no matter what. Like, based on what I'm saying. I just feel a bit disappointed that, I don't know, I prefer melee over ranged when it comes to these type of games.
Early on, things were pretty sort of linear until you got to the point where I got to the town, and then I had the ability to basically just go around the open world. You can embark on side quests if you want to. You can sort of just venture around the world and you'll find things. There were like things to interact with, chests, and sometimes sort of puzzles to solve, which of course then would lead to some loot. Sometimes that loot can be gear pieces, customization elements. You can of course have different cloaks. You can customize by sort of painting your nails with different abilities. Admittedly, you don't
that's like
see
your
that
equipment.
too much,
I see.
but there are definitely some sort of a customization elements. So of course the
hands look a
need to
bit
explore
weird.
the world, or the sort of desire to explore the world, definitely was there. I will say it wasn't necessarily the most populated world, but I feel like you didn't notice that as much because you are moving around so quickly. You do
kind of gives me like an Elden Ring kind of vibe. Like the world's like not inhabited by a bunch of people.
Regularly see enemies, but of course they are more sort of interspersed. But because you can so quickly dash over rocks, sort of climb up mountains, and sort of dash around really quickly because of the magical parkour, you don't necessarily notice that slightly barren nature as much. But there are still some interesting things to encounter alongside your
Yeah,
regular
that
sort of
makes
flash
sense.
mobs and troops and things to take down. I did stumble across a few sort of strong enemies, not like the big world bosses. We have seen in the trailers that there are these sort of ginormous creatures. I didn't get a chance to encounter any of them, but I did still come across some pretty strong creatures, some of which I was definitely not ready to tackle. So, you know, I do feel like the people that like to explore the open world, do like to sort of go around, do side quests, do other stuff, go off the beaten track, there will definitely be some
That's kind
things
of annoying. Like, you see how many melee enemies you run into, but they couldn't put in, like, melee early on for the character? This doesn't make sense.
to experience. But for the time being, that is kind of it. I think my sort of general summary from it is that from what I've played so far, I am definitely interested, but I do not feel like I've played enough
Yeah,
just yet
I mean, just
to
from what I've
have
seen, I'm
completely sold
interested.
on the game. I like the movement, I like the visuals, I like the world, but I definitely don't feel like I have been sold on combat just yet, and I do feel like given that combat is at the crux of the game, this is definitely going to be a make or break for me. Once I get a chance to
I mean, it doesn't look bad to the point that I wouldn't play it. It just doesn't look like anything that's going to be amazing. But, I mean, like you said, he didn't play, like, the completed version either from what it sounded like, so...
test out melee combat, my opinion may well change, but until that time, I definitely am still somewhat on the fence. But for the time being, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. Hopefully this has given you guys some stuff to look at, some sort of things to think about. Again, if you have any questions, by all means let me know in the comments down
That was
below.
pretty cool.
I will be following up with some more videos, so if you do want to check out a few specific things, you can definitely find those soon. But in the meantime, if you missed some of our recent videos, you can check out one of these ones, and I'll catch you guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's... Forspoken, man. That's looking really, really good. Not gonna lie. When does this come out? Oh, this is just a few days away. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and pre-order this. Like, I normally don't pre-order things unless it's like, okay, would I play it even if it was bad? And even from what I've seen, I'm like, yeah, actually, I probably will play this even if people say it's bad, just to kind of see for myself. So, good video though.